Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. For 14 years, Ruby and I built what I thought was a solid marriage. We met in our late 20s, married when I was 31, and spent over a decade navigating the ordinary challenges that come with sharing a life. There were no moments that made me question whether we'd make it. We had our rough patches like anyone else, but nothing ever felt over the top. I held a management position at a logistics company. Ruby, on the other hand, worked for a pharmaceutical firm. She made decent money, and we split bills fairly. Between the two of us, we lived well. We owned a 3-bedroom house, and the mortgage was paid off within the first 12 years of our marriage. We had savings, with no major debt, and we took modest vacations every year, nothing extravagant, but we weren't struggling either. After our 13th anniversary, everything shifted in a way I didn't see coming. I got promoted to Regional Operations Director. It was a role I'd been working toward for years, and when it finally came through, it felt like validation for all the overtime, all the travel, all the times I'd chosen work over rest. The promotion came with a significant raise, nearly 30% more than I'd been making, plus quarterly bonuses, stock options, and full family benefits that covered health, dental, vision, and even a wellness stipend. For the first time in our marriage, money stopped being something we had to think about carefully. We were comfortable before, but now we were genuinely secure. Ruby seemed proud of me when I told her. She hugged me, congratulated me, and said she knew I'd earned it. But within 2 weeks of that promotion, she came to me with something on her mind. We were sitting in the living room that evening after dinner. She had her laptop open, but wasn't really looking at it. I could tell she was working up to something. She started by saying she'd been feeling burned out and the corporate grind was wearing her down. She added that she didn't find any meaning in what she was doing anymore, and that she wanted to step away and figure out what she actually wanted to do with her time. She said she wanted to start doing her own thing, something more flexible, something that didn't drain her the way her job did. I asked her what she had in mind. She didn't have specifics. She mentioned maybe starting a small business or getting into wellness coaching, something she'd always been interested in. She said she just needed space to breathe and figure it out without the pressure of a 9-to-5. I thought about it for a few days. We talked it through more than once. I ran the numbers in my head. Between my new salary and our low overhead, we didn't need her income to maintain our lifestyle. The house was paid off. We had no kids. Our expenses were manageable. If she wanted to take time to reset and find something that made her happy, I didn't see why I should stand in her way. She'd worked hard for years, too. Maybe she'd earned a break. So I told her I was fine with it. I told her she could quit if that's what she needed. She resigned a month later. At first, things seemed better. She was sleeping in later, smiling more, and cooking dinner a few times a week. She said she felt lighter. She wasn't stressed the way she used to be when she came home from work. I thought maybe this was exactly what she needed, a chance to step off the treadmill and figure out what came next. But as the weeks went by, I started noticing that she wasn't actually working on anything. No business plan. No classes or certifications. She wasn't even researching what she might want to do. Instead, her days started to fill up with something else entirely. She was socializing constantly. She was always meeting someone, hosting someone, or planning the next gathering. The group she spent the most time with was a rotating crew of women, most of whom I'd met in passing over the years. A few were wives of men I knew casually. A couple were single or divorced. They all seemed to have similar lifestyles, and Ruby fit right in. At first, I didn't think much of it. She'd spent years working long hours in a stressful environment. If she wanted to unwind and enjoy herself for a while, I wasn't going to judge her for it. I figured eventually she'd settle into something more productive. I trusted that she'd find her rhythm. But months passed, and that rhythm never came. She was hosting gatherings at our house 2 or 3 times a week. I'd come home from work to find her in the kitchen with 2 or 3 friends, wine glasses out, cheese boards on the counter, laughter echoing through the house. Other times, she'd be out until late, coming home smelling like perfume and cocktails. I started to wonder what doing her own thing actually meant, because from where I stood, it looked like she was just living a permanent vacation. But I didn't say anything. I kept my concerns to myself. She seemed happy. She wasn't asking me for anything beyond the financial support I was already providing. So I let it go. This became the new normal. Then, one Tuesday evening, everything changed. I left work earlier than usual. I'd been putting in 12-hour days for weeks straight, and we had to meet with some new partners the next day. Since I looked worn down, I was told me to go home, get some rest, and come back fresh the next day. I didn't argue because I was exhausted. I pulled into the driveway a little after 6 and immediately noticed 3 cars parked along the curb in front of our house. I recognized all of them, Ruby's friends. Another gathering. I sat in my car for a moment, debating whether I wanted to walk into that energy. I wasn't in the mood for small talk or forced politeness. I just wanted to lie down. I decided to park farther down the street and come in through the back door. That way I could slip into the bedroom without interrupting them. The house smelled like garlic and wine when I stepped inside. I could hear their voices from the living room. I recognized a few of the voices, but didn't bother trying to place them all. I went straight to the bedroom, closed the door quietly, and changed into sweatpants and a t-shirt. I planned to lie down, maybe close my eyes for a bit, and wait for them to leave before coming back out. I stretched out on the bed and tried to relax, but their voices carried easily through the walls. The house wasn't that big, and they weren't trying to be quiet. I could hear almost everything they were saying. At first, it was just the usual stuff. I wasn't really paying attention. It was just background noise. With time, the conversation shifted. One of the women, her voice was slightly higher pitched, started talking about her husband's friend. She said the friend had just gone through a divorce and had been coming around their house more often. She admitted, half laughing, that she'd started finding him attractive. She said it in a joking tone, but there was something underneath it that didn't sound entirely like a joke. Instead of anyone shutting that down, the group laughed. Someone commented on how divorce glow-ups were real. Someone else teased this woman about having a crush. Then I heard Ruby's voice, saying, "Please, that's nothing. Even my husband's best friend tried me once and honestly, it was the best outside experience ever." The room erupted in laughter. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. I replayed the sentence in my head, trying to make sure I'd heard it right. Maybe I misunderstood and I missed some context. Or it was part of a joke I didn't catch. But the laughter confirmed it. They all understood exactly what she meant. I just sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, trying to process what I'd just heard. I've known my best friend since college. He was at our wedding. He'd been to our house dozens of times over the years. We'd gone on trips together, watched games together, shared beers on countless Friday nights. I trusted him. I trusted both of them. And now I was listening to my wife casually tell her friends that he'd tried her, and that it was the best outside experience she'd ever had. I didn't hear much of what they said after that. Their voices continued, but it all turned into static. I was numb as I replay that one sentence over and over. Hours later the noise started to die down. I heard goodbyes, car doors closing, engine starting. The house went quiet. Ruby came into the bedroom maybe an hour later. She looked surprised to see me. She asked when I'd gotten home. I told her a couple hours ago. She didn't seem suspicious. She kissed me on the forehead, said she was tired, and got ready for bed. When she climbed under the covers, told me good night, and fell asleep within minutes. I lay there beside her, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to wake her up and demand an explanation right then and there. But another part of me knew that if I did that, all I'd get was denial or defensiveness, or some version of the truth that I wouldn't be able to verify. So I stayed silent. For the next couple of days, I didn't confront her. I went to work, came home, acted normal. But I was watching her constantly. I paid attention to how she used her phone, how she talked to me, how she moved through the house. I was looking for signs, anything that would confirm or deny what I'd heard. She gave me nothing. She acted the same as always. Cheerful, casual, unbothered. But I couldn't let it go. I needed to know if what she said was real or just drunken bravado. I decided I wasn't going to ask her directly. If she lied, I'd never know the difference. I needed proof. One Friday night, she fell asleep early while watching a video on her phone. She'd been out during the day and came home tired. I waited until I was sure she was fully asleep. Then I carefully picked up her phone. I'd never felt the need to check her phone before, and I don't think she ever expected me to. I opened her messages and started scrolling. There were group chats with her friends. There were conversations with a few men I didn't recognize. The tone in those messages was flirty. Nothing explicit, but enough to make me uncomfortable. I took screenshots of a few of them, but I didn't see anything from my best friend. I went to her contacts and found his number. It was saved under his full name. I opened the message thread. There was nothing incriminating. I stared at the screen for a long time, trying to decide what to do. Then I typed a message. I have been thinking of last time. I hesitated before hitting send. My hands were shaking, but I did it. I held the phone and lay there in the dark, not allowing the screen to lock. Some minutes later, the phone buzzed. The message was from my best friend saying, "Me too." I felt sick. Then I typed another message. "Let's do it again." Then I waited. The 3 dots appeared almost immediately. "Okay, same location," was the reply. I took screenshots of everything. Then I put the phone back down and lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling like my entire life had just collapsed. Ruby was still asleep beside me, breathing softly, completely unaware. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I got up early, showered, and left the house before she woke up. I drove to a coffee shop across town, trying to clear my head. After hours of deliberating, I called a divorce attorney I'd found online. He'd been practicing family law for over 20 years, and his reviews were solid. I met with him later that day. I brought the screenshots. I explained everything, what I'd overheard, what I'd found, how long we'd been married, our financial situation, the fact that Ruby hadn't worked in months. The lawyer listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said the evidence was strong, but that Virginia law didn't require proof of adultery to file for divorce. He said we could file on the grounds of no-fault separation, which would be simpler and faster, but that if I wanted to pursue a fault-based divorce, the screenshots and testimony could support that. I told him I didn't care about making it messy. I just wanted it done. He said he'd draft the paperwork and have it ready within a week. I went home that night and acted like nothing had changed. I had dinner with Ruby. She asked how my day was. I said it was fine. Inside, I was gone. The divorce papers were served 2 weeks later. I wasn't home when it happened. I made sure of that. I didn't want to be there for the initial reaction. When I got home that evening, Ruby was waiting for me in the living room. The papers were on the coffee table. She stood up as soon as I walked in and asked me what the hell this was. She asked me why I was doing this. Said we could talk about whatever was wrong, that we didn't need lawyers, that this was insane. I stayed calm. I set my keys down on the counter and looked at her. I said, "I heard you that night with your friends. I just wanted to be sure you weren't joking." Her face changed. The color drained completely. She tried to laugh it off. She said she was drunk. She said she was just messing around, that it didn't mean anything, that her friends say stupid things all the time when they've been drinking. I didn't respond. She kept talking, her voice getting faster, more desperate. She said I was taking something out of context, that she couldn't believe I was throwing away 14 years over something she said as a joke. I waited until she stopped. Then I said, "Call him." She froze. I repeated it. "Call him. Right now. On speaker." She didn't move. She just stood there, staring at me. After a long silence, her shoulders dropped. Her face crumpled. She admitted it. She said it happened once. She said it was a mistake. She said she regretted it, that it didn't mean anything, that she still loved me, that we could fix this. She begged me to forgive her. She said we could go to counseling, that we could rebuild, that she'd do whatever it took. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't yell. I just let her talk until she ran out of words. When she was done, I told her it was too late. She cried. She pleaded. She said I was being cold, that I was giving up too easily, that marriages go through hard things and come out stronger. I didn't argue with her. I just repeated that it was over. The divorce process took 8 months. Ruby fought it at first. Her lawyer tried to paint me as an emotionally distant husband who worked too much and left her feeling neglected. They argued that she'd sacrificed her career to support me and that she was entitled to significant financial support. I didn't fight back on any of it. I let them say whatever they wanted. My lawyer presented the evidence, the screenshots, the timeline, my testimony about what I'd overheard. It was clear. It was factual. It was undeniable. But even with all of that, the court still awarded Ruby a substantial settlement. 14 years of marriage carried weight. The fact that she'd quit her job and become financially dependent on me carried weight. Virginia law leaned toward equitable distribution, and, in the judge's view, that meant she was entitled to a significant portion of our shared assets. I had to pay her a lump sum settlement and agree to short-term spousal support while she got back on her feet. My lawyer warned me this might happen. He said the evidence helped, but that long marriages with financial imbalance often resulted in outcomes that felt unfair to the higher earner. He asked if I wanted to fight harder. I told him no. I didn't want to drag it out. I didn't want to spend more time in courtrooms or depositions or mediation sessions. I didn't want to keep reliving it. I just wanted it to be over. So I agreed to the terms. I signed the papers. I paid what I was ordered to pay. And then I walked away. It's been 6 months since the divorce was finalized. I still live in the same house. Ruby moved into an apartment closer to her friends. I haven't spoken to her since the final hearing. I haven't spoken to my best friend either. He tried to reach out once, a few weeks after the divorce was filed. He sent me a long text saying he was sorry, that he never meant for it to happen, that he valued our friendship and hoped we could talk. I didn't respond. I blocked his number. I think about it sometimes, what I could have done differently, whether I missed signs earlier, whether I was too trusting or too blind or too passive. But the more time passes, the more I realize that none of that matters. The truth is, I gave Ruby everything I thought a partner was supposed to give. I worked hard. I provided. I supported her choices. I didn't control her or question her or make her feel trapped. When she said she wanted to leave her job and find something that made her happy, I didn't stand in her way. I covered the bills. I gave her space. I gave her freedom. And somewhere along the way, she stopped seeing that as partnership. She started seeing it as permission. Financial security didn't change who she was. It just revealed it. When I think back on those months after she quit her job, the constant gatherings, the endless socializing, the complete absence of any meaningful work or purpose, I realize now that she wasn't taking a break. She was indulging. And I enabled it because I thought I was being supportive. I thought I was giving her peace. I didn't know I was giving her space to forget what partnership meant, that I covered every bill, every need, every comfort. But the one thing I couldn't buy back was respect. And once that was gone, nothing else mattered. I don't regret the divorce. I don't regret the settlement. I'd rather lose money than lose myself. I'm rebuilding now. Slowly. I'm working less, sleeping better, spending more time with people I trust. I'm learning what it feels like to live without that quiet, constant weight of knowing something's wrong, but not being able to name it. I don't know what Ruby's doing now. I don't ask. I don't check. But I do know this. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I just wish I'd heard her clearly that night before I spent 14 years convinced I knew her at all.